So what are the? We're not live, right? We're not live yet. So what are the program like a schedule for tonight's program?
So we'll have dua now and then poetry in English, Farsi and Urdu,
Oh, yeah.
and then Moulana speaking. Sheikh Salim.
In English, Urdu, and Farsi, and then followed by the speech by the Sheikh Salim Yusufali.
Okay, brother, ready?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. Congratulations on the birthday of our beloved Imam, the first Imam of us, Imam Ali alayhi salam. Inshallah, tonight we are going to start our program, the Dua Kumail program, followed by recitations of poetry in English, Urdu, and Farsi, followed by this speech by our dear Moulana, Sheikh Salim Yusufali. With that, inshallah, we are going to start the Dua Kumail. Please say salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا دائم الفضل على البرية يا باسط اليدين بالعطية يا صاحب المواهب السنية صل على محمد وآله خير الورى سجية واغفر لنا يا ذا العلا في هذه العشية واغفر لنا يا ذا العلا في هذه العشية واغفر لنا يا ذا العلا في هذه العشية أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم إني أسألك برحمتك التي وسعت كل شيء وبقوتك التي غفرت بها كل شيء وخضع لها كل شيء وذل لها كل شيء وبجبروتك التي غلبت بها كل شيء وبعزتك التي لا يقوم لها شيء وبعظمتك التي ملأت كل شيء وبسلطانك الذي على كل شيء وبوجهك الباغي بعد فناء كل شيء وبأسمائك التي ملأت أركان كل شيء وبعلمك الذي أحاط بكل شيء وبنور وجهك الذي أضاء له كل شيء يا نور يا قدوس يا أول الأولين ويا آخر الآخرين اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحت كل شر. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل النغم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تغير النعم. اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك واستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك. اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تسامحني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأهوال متواضعا. اللهم واسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته. اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك. اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائحي ساطرا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي. اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فاضح من البلاء أقلته وكم من عثار وغيته وكم من مكروه دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته. اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرط بي سوء حالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقعدت بي أغلالي وحبسني عن نفئي بعد أملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومتاغلي. يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك الله يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعاجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي
كثرة شهواتي وغفلتي، وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا، وعلي في جميع الأمور عطوفا. إلهي وربي من لي غيرك، أسأله كشف ضري والنبر في أمري. إلهي ومولاي، أجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي، ولم أحترس فيه من تزيين عدوي، فغرني بما أغواه وأسعده على ذلك الغضاء، فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعض حدودك، وخالفت بعض أوامرك، فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك، ولا حجتني فيما جرى علي فيه قضاءك، والزمني حكمك وبلاغك. وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تغشيري وإسرافي على نفسي، معتبرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا، مستغفرا منيبا، مقرا مذعنا معترفا، لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا، أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري، وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك. اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ذري، وفكني من شد وثاقي. يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي، يا من بدا خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي، حبني لابتداء كرمك وصالف برك بي. يا إلهي وسيدي وربي، أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك، وبعد ما انطوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك، ولحج به لساني من ذكرك، واعتقده ضميري من حبك، وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك. هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تضيع من ربيت، أو تبعد من أدنيت، أو تشرد من آويت، أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيت ورحمت. وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي، أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة، وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة، وبشكرك مادحة، وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة، وعلى ضمائر حوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة، وعلى جوارح سعد إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة، وأشارت باستغفارك مذعنة: ما هكذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك يا كريم يا رب. وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها، وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها، على أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه، قليل مكثوه، يسير بغاء، قصير مدته. فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها، وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله، لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك، وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي. فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين؟ يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي، لأي الأمور إليك أشكو، ولما منها أذج وأبكي، لأليم العذاب وشدته، أم لطول البلاء ومدته، فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك، وهبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي، صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك، وهبني صبرت على خر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك، أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي يفو. فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا، لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهل خاضجيج العاملين، ولا أصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين، ولا أبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين، ولو ناضينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين، يا غاية آمال العارفين، يا غياث المستغيثين، يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين، ويا إله العالمين، فتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته، وضاقت أعمى ضابقها بمعصيته. وحبس بين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته، وهو يذج إليك ذجيج معمل لرحمتك، ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك، ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك. يا مولاي، فكيف يبقى في الأضام وهو يرجو ما سلف من حلمك؟ أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك؟ أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه؟ أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه؟ أم كيف يتقلقل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه؟ أم كيف تزجره زبانيتها وهو يناديك يا رب؟ أم كيف يرجو فضلك في عتقه منها فتتركه فيها؟ هيهات، ما بالك الظن بك ولا المعروف من فضلك ولا مشبه لما آمنت به الموحدين من برك وإحسانك، فباليقين أقطع لولا ما حكمت به من تعذيب جاحديك وقضيت به من إخلاد معانديك. لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مغرها ولا مقاما، لكنك تقدست أسماؤك وأقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين، وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين، وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما، فمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون. إلهي وسيدي، فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها، أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل أملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته، وكل سيئة أمرت بإثبات الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواره، وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم، والشاهد لما خفي عنهم، وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته، وأن توثر حظي من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي، يا من بيده ناصيتي، يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي، يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي. يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك مأمورا وبخدمتك موصولا، وأعمالي عندك مقبولا، حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا، وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا. يا سيدي يا من عليه مؤولي، يا من عليه شكوت أحوالي، يا ربي يا ربي يا رب، قو على خدمتك جوارحي واشدد على العزيمة جوانه، وهب لي الجد في خشيتك والدوام في الاتصال بخدمتك، حتى أصرح إليك في ميادين السابقين، وأسرع إليك في البارزين، واشتاق إلى قربك في المشتاقين، وأبنو منك دنو المخلصين، وأخافك مخافة الموقنين، واجتمع في جوارك مع المؤمنين. اللهم ومن أرادني بسوء فأرده، ومن كادني فكد، واجعلني من أحسن عبيدك نصيبا عندك، وأقربهم منزلة منك، وأخصهم زلفة لديك، فإنه لا ينال ذلك إلا بفضلك، وجد لي بجودك، وعطف علي بمجدك، واحفظني برحمتك، واجعل لساني بذكرك لحجا، وقلبي بحبك متيما، ومن علي بحسن إجابتك، وعقلني عثرتي، واغفر زلتي، فإنك قضيت على عبادك بعبادتك، وأمرتهم بدعائك، وضمنت لهم الإجابة، فإليك يا رب نصبت وجهي، وإليك يا رب مددت يدي، فبعزتك استجب لي دعائي، وبلغني مناي، ولا تقطع من فضلك رجائي، واكفني شر الجن والإنس من أعدائي. يا سريع الرضا اغفر لمن لا يملك إلا الدعاء فإنك فعال لما تشاء يا من اسمه دواء وذكره شفاء وطاعته غنى ارحم الرأس ماله الرجاء وسلاحه البكاء يا سابغ النعم يا دافع النغم يا نور المستوحشين في الظلام يا عالما لا يعلم صل على محمد وآل محمد وافعل بي ما أنت أهله وصلى الله على رسوله والأئمة الميامين من آله وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Please recite Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha for all the marhumin, followed by the salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala
جلوے حق نما ہے علی جلوے حق نما ہے علی جلوے حق نما ہے علی لامکان کا پتہ ہے علی لامکان کا پتہ ہے علی مقصد کبریا ہے علی مقصد کبریا ہے علی جان خیر الورا ہے علی جان خیر الورا ہے علی جو شناسا تیرا ہے علی جو شناسا تیرا ہے علی وہ نبی یا خدا ہے علی وہ نبی یا خدا ہے علی مدح کا تیرا قرآن میں مدح کا تیرا قرآن میں سورہ حلتا ہے علی سورہ حلتا ہے علی जिसमें है किबरियाई झलक, जिसमें है किबरियाई झलक, ऐसा तू आईना है अली, ऐसा तू आईना है अली। अब दो माबूद के दरमियाँ, अब दो माबूद के दरमियाँ एक कवी राबता है अली, एक कवी राबता है अली। औलिया हो के हो अंबिया, औलिया हो के हो अंबिया, सबका मुश्किल कुशा है अली, जलवे हक नुमा है अली, लामका का पता है अली।
دل هور و ملک گردید عالی، حال دل هور و ملک گردید عالی، آمد به دنیا حضرت مولانا، آمد به دنیا حضرت مولانا، ذکر محبین نور و تبارک، میلاد مولا بادا مبارک، بر کل مخلوقان ولی آمد به دنیا، بر کل مخلوقان ولی آمد به دنیا، نجل ابو طالب علی آمد به دنیا، بادا مبارک مقدم مولود کعبه، بادا مبارک مقدم مولود کعبه، بادا مبارک مقدم مولود کعبه. تفسیر آیات وفا آمد خوش آمد، تفسیر آیات وفا آمد خوش آمد، جان نبی مصطفی آمد خوش آمد، جان نبی مصطفی آمد خوش آمد، خاک خدیمش فخر و سعادت، قرآن بخواند وقت ولادت، سیمای قرآن در کلام او عیان است، نور ایامش را چه حاجت در بیان است، بادا مبارک مقدم مولود کعبه، بادا مبارک مقدم مولود کعبه، بادا مبارک مقدم مولود کعبه. من که به عشق ناب حیدر مبتلایم، من که به عشق ناب حیدر مبتلایم، در اعتکاف کنج ایوان طلایم، در اعتکاف کنج ایوان طلایم ذکر یا حیدر اوج عبادان بر معتکف ها روح مناجات یارم به حق شیعیان مرتضایی یارم به حق شیعیان مرتضایی ما را نما با یا علی کرب و بلایی ما را نما با یا علی کرب و بلایی بادا مبارک مقدم مولود کعبه 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 سلام علیکم. Are we off?
إنما وليكم الله ورسوله إنما وليكم الله ورسوله والذين آمنوا الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم راكعون. The true meaning of this verse of the Quran is the true meaning of this verse of the Quran is Amir al-Mu'minin is only Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar. To the person who rejects the velayat, to the person who rejects the velayat, his actions are not accepted, don't bother even making wudu after rejecting the velayat. It's just playing with water. Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar. Search for the best thing in this world. The best thing was love of Haydar. Search for the best thing in this world. The best thing was love of Haydar. The best place in heavens is with Haydar and children of Haydar. The best place in heavens is with Haydar and children of Haydar. Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar Ali Mawla Ali Haydar. I went to masjid to worship. Standard of worship was Haydar. I went to masjid to worship. Standard of worship was Haydar. The foundation of the masjid was built on the love of Haydar, was built on the love of Haydar. Ali Mola, Ali Haydar, Ali Mola, Ali Haydar, Ali Mola, Ali Haydar, Ali Mola, Ali Haydar, Ali Mola, Ali Haydar. Ali Mola, Ali Haydar, Ali Mola, Ali Haydar, Ali Mola, Ali Haydar. At the end, inshallah, let's make a short tawassul to Imam Ali. All of us who have hajat, we go to the door of Imam Ali. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us our hajat, to give us the Eid, the best Eid, the hastening and the return of the Imam for time. There is a couple requests from families that have small children who are ill or sick. Let's keep all of them in our prayers that inshallah, بحق Ali and awlad Ali, they are granted shifa ajal very soon. Assalamu alayka ya Aba al-Hasan, ya Ali ibn Abi Talib, يا أمير المؤمنين يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Eid Mubarak to you, to your family. May Allah bless you, your family, our community. Welcome to our program tonight, a program dedicated to the birth anniversary of the commander of the faithful, Hazrat Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. With that introduction, we would like to invite you to our program tonight, and inshallah the speech that is going to be led by our dear scholar, Moulana Salim Yusufali, with a loud salawat ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين والسيد المرسلين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. Respected elders, brothers, sisters, Salamun alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we're blessed to be able to come together on this platform to commemorate a very special occasion, the birth of Moulana Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, for the hastening of the reappearance of the Imam of our time and for securing his special attention. And as a means of getting closer to Imam Ali alayhi salam, let's recite salawat on Muhammad and his family. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, please accept my congratulations on this special occasion. These days and nights are particularly special. Not only is it the month of Rajab, it's also the days and nights of Bid, meaning the bright and luminous nights where the moon is at its fullest in the month. And we're told that in the months of Rajab, Sha'aban, and Ramadan, these particular days are very important and very powerful in the spiritual realm. And on top of that, it's also a Thursday night. On top of that, it's also the day in which we celebrated the birth of the master of the faithful, Imam Ali alayhi salam. So many beautiful occasions and opportunities coming together, and we're very thankful to Allah that He's given us this tawfiq to be able to remember this and participate in it, and inshallah benefit from all these blessings. What I'd like to do tonight, inshallah, if I could just request that the echo be turned off. What I'd like to do tonight, inshallah, is to mention some of the events that took place in the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and some things that inshallah we can take from the fadail and the merits of Imam Ali. And then afterwards, we have a special presentation from Kissa family. And alhamdulillah, we've already been treated to 2 of those presentations. Tonight, inshallah, is our 3rd one, and we're looking forward to being able to see some of the community members, both locally and in other parts of the nation, and to hear about how things are going for them and getting their reflections on some of the challenges that they've been facing and different strategies they've been taking to overcome these challenges through the course of this pandemic. So I want to begin tonight, inshallah, with first of all mentioning some points from the tradition narrated about the birth of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali is known as the Mawlud of Kaaba, the one who was born in the Kaaba. Never before has anyone ever been born in the Kaaba, and never after him was anyone born in the Kaaba. He is the only one who was chosen for that honor. And in the report that's narrated by Sheikh Saduq, he says that when his mother Fatima bint Asad was in the 9th month of expecting the child, she goes to the Kaaba and she's finding some type of difficulty, and she begins to do munajat with Allah. She says, "Oh my Lord, I am a believer in you, and I am a believer in what your prophets have brought and in the books, and I am a believer in the speech and the words of my grandfather Ibrahim al-Khalil alayhi salam, and that he is the one who built this house. And I ask you, by the sake of the one who built this house, and by the sake of the one who is within me, meaning the child within me, Lamma yasarta alayya wiladati. Oh Allah, make this delivery process easy for me." And when Fatima bint Asad makes this dua, she sees that the Kaaba opens for her, and she realizes that she is to go inside the Kaaba. The narrator who describes these events that are taking place, he says that after she went in and after the Kaaba closed on her, we went and we tried to open the door, but it was locked. And after trying, we came to realize that this was an amr from Allah. This was a special command from Allah, and we couldn't do anything but to wait until she would come out. And on the 4th day of her entering, she came out from the Kaaba, and in her hands was Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Later, Fatima bint Asad would describe some of what took place while she was in the Kaaba. And in one of the lines, she says that when I wanted to leave, there was a voice that called out. And the voice said, "O Fatima, Sammihi Aliya. O Fatima, name him Ali." Why? Because he is Ali. And Allah is Al-Aliyul A'la. Allah is the one who is the most high of the high. And he is saying that I have derived his name from my name. And I have trained him with my teachings. وَأَدَّبْتُهُ بِأَدَبِي وَوَقَفْتُهُ عَلَى غَامِضِ عِلْمِي. I have taught him the depth of my knowledge. وَهُوَ الَّذِي يَكْسِرُ الْأَصْنَامَ فِي بَيْتِي. He is the one who is going to break the idols in my home. وَهُوَ الَّذِي يُؤَذِّنُ فَوْقَ ظَهْرِ بَيْتِي. And he is the one who is going to recite the adhan from on top of my house. وَيُقَدِّسُنِي وَيُمَجِّدُنِي. He is the one who is going to glorify me. He is the one who is going to sanctify me. فَطُوبَى لِمَنْ أَحَبَّهُ وَأَطَاعَهُ. So good tidings be to the ones who love him and obey him. وَوَيْلٌ لِمَنْ عَصَاهُ وَأَبْغَضَهُ. And woe be to the ones who disobey him and who have hatred towards him. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. So this is the tradition among a number of others, and this is widely reported in the books of Shia traditions and in many of the Sunni traditions. Allama Amini, in his encyclopedia of Islamic history about the wilayah of Imam Ali alayhi salam, known as al-Ghadir, he collected tens of traditions from Ahlul Sunnah authors, some of them who said that it's mutawatir. It's something which is so widely reported, it's impossible to deny that Imam Ali Islam was born in the Kaaba. Tonight, inshallah, I am going to mention 3 incidents from the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And I've picked these incidents for a reason. There's a common thread among all 3 of them. But rather than telling you from now what that thread is, I just want to mention some things. Maybe I would ask you to pay attention and see if you can find this common thread between the 3. First of all, before beginning, I just want to say something about the fadail of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Sometimes we talk about things which are ethical or philosophical or political or social matters. These are all important, but there are times where we need to talk about the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam and who they were and what their merits were. And this is a command that we have from them. This is part of who we are and part of the things that we need. We're actually, our souls have been made in a way that we need these role models and we need to have their merits and their virtues be very prominent in our lives. There's one tradition we have in this regard from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa says in a hadith that Allah has placed for my brother Ali ibn Abi Talib fada'ila la tuhsa kathratan. He has merits which cannot be enumerated, innumerable merits. And then he goes on to say, whoever reads one of the fadila of his fadail, whoever reads one of his merits and believes in what that merit says, Allah forgives him for his sins. And whoever writes one of the merits of Imam Ali alayhi salam, while he is writing that merit, the angels are seeking forgiveness for him during that process. And whoever listens to one of the fada'il of Imam Ali alayhi salam, then Allah Ta'ala forgives him for those sins that he has acquired because of his hearing. And whoever looks at something that's been written from the merits of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Allah forgives him for those sins that he has committed through his eyes. And then the Prophet says the famous line, "An-nadharu ila Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam ibadah." Looking at Imam Ali alayhi salam is an act of worship. وَلَا يَقْبَلُ اللَّهُ إِيمَانَ عَبْدٍ إِلَّا بِوِلَايَتِهِ وَالْبَرَاءَةِ مِنْ أَعْدَائِهِ. Allah will not accept the faith of a servant unless that servant has adherence to the wilayah of Imam Ali and is clear from his enemies. This is a very powerful tradition. It tells us that Imam Ali's virtues are a means of purification of the soul. Not just when we talk about them, but when we believe them, when we hear them and we bring them to our hearts. And all of us have a place in our hearts for this role model. Sometimes people say something, it's a phrase that's repeated, live like Ali and die like Hussein, alayhim as-salam. But technically, it's not a correct statement. It should be live like Ali, die like Ali. Live like Hussein, die like Hussein. Live like Hassan, die like Hassan. Live like Fatima, die like Fatima. And you can name any member of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Why? Because every single one of them, in all aspects of the way that they were, in all their merits and virtues, they were a role model for us in this world and in the hereafter. And tonight, I've chosen 3 examples from the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam in which we can see a type of way that he used to live his life. I'm not going to tell you what that is. I want you to, inshallah, see if you can deduce this from the different stories that I'm about to share, inshallah. Let's begin with a salawat on Muhammad and his family. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, the first incident that I want to share with you is from the occasion which was known as the Battle of Dhatus Salasil. It's one of those battles that isn't normally talked about. But it took place sometime before the Fath of Makkah. So this is, after the Battle of Ahzab, after Uhud and Badr, before, Tabuk and the other things that took place towards the end of the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So according to a report which is mentioned by Sheikh Tusi in one of his works, he says that there was a man who came to the Prophet when the Prophet was in Medina. And he said that I have some nasiha for you, Ya Rasulullah. I want to come and give you some advice. And Rasulullah says that, what is it? And the man tells him, well, there's a group of the mushrikeen who have gathered near the city of Medina, and they are planning on laying siege on the city. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam interrogates him, and he comes to realize that this man is speaking the truth. And so he commands Imam Ali alayhi salam to gather all the Muslim army, and they all come together, and the Prophet informs them that this is a crisis situation that has appeared. We need to do something about this. And when everyone is assembled, they have all their weapons ready, the Prophet appoints one of the companions to be the leader of the army. And he goes forward with his soldiers, and soon enough, after some time, he fights with the mushrikeen, and when he comes back, he basically has to flee from the scene and is not successful in being able to do anything. The enemy is still there, and they're feeling very courageous, like that they can come and they can take the city as well. So the Prophet ﷺ appoints the second to go and see what he can do, and he comes back with the same lack of results. And then Amr ibn As, he says that, well, let me take a try at it. I can do something. And he goes and he also comes back without any success. And at that point, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam calls upon Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. And he says that, oh Ali, you go, you take the flag, and you be the one who goes and takes on this enemy. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, it's very interesting. Before he goes, he first of all goes to his home, and he asks Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam for this special cloth. And when he does that, then Fatima alayhi salam, she finds it for him, she gives it to him, and she asks him that, what is this for? And she knows that Imam Ali would only take this cloth and tie it on himself when there was a particularly difficult battle he was about to face. So he explains to her that in that valley, beyond the city, the enemy has gathered, and she begins to cry. And when Rasulullah comes into the home to get Imam Ali, he realizes that Fatima is crying. He says that, why are you crying? It's not that you don't want him to, it's not that you're fearful for his death, are you? And Fatima alayhi salam says, no. She says, whatever Allah wills. That's not the thing. But of course, she has love for Imam Ali alayhi salam. And for her to see Imam Ali being ready for battle, it's something which it touches her heart. Then Imam Ali alayhi salam makes his way to the enemy, and he takes the soldiers with him. And it's a long expedition, but when they eventually line up against the enemy, then Imam Ali alayhi salam tells them that I am the messenger of Allah. Either you say La ilaha illallah and you admit La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika la wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasulah, and if you do that, then I'm going to leave you alone. But if you are going to be stubborn, obstinate aggressors, then لَأَضْرِبَنَّكُمْ بِالسَّيْفِ, then I am going to take this sword and I am going to strike you. This was, after all, the duty to defend Islam, the duty to defend the Muslims. These people were ready to lay siege with the hundreds of enemy forces. And then they tell him that you can go back to where the other people who came before you, they came from. We're not going to budge. We have the reason for why we're here. And at that point, Imam Ali Islam, he introduces himself. Until that point, they didn't realize who he was. He says that, Ana Ali ibn Abi Talib. I am Ali, the son of Abu Talib, and I have come here to fight you. And at that point, the enemy starts to get a little bit worried because they had heard the name of Imam Ali alayhi salam. By that time, it had been some years now where battle after battle, Imam Ali alayhi salam was the one who had taken down the enemy, and they had, they realized that this was a formidable foe that they were facing. So the battle begins, and Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam, just as he did in so many battles, he was the one who courageously, bravely, he goes forward and he starts to fight. And easily, he's able to take down a number of the enemy soldiers. After they start losing their own soldiers, eventually they surrender. And they're bound up in chains. And by the way, that one of the reasons why the historians have said that this battle is called Dhatul Salasil, it could be because Salasil means chains, and it could be the case that because they were chained up while they were taken prisoners, or it could be the name of the place where the battle took place. There are different opinions about it. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in Medina at that time, and the report says that Salama, the wife of Rasulullah, she was looking at him, and suddenly he started. And she said, Ya Rasulullah, what's the matter? And he says that Jibreel alayhi salam has come to me, and he has told me that Ali alayhi salam is now coming back. So Rasulullah tells the Muslims, come together, let's go and welcome Imam Ali alayhi salam and the army. So they line up and they're waiting for Imam Ali alayhi salam to come. And when Imam alayhi salam comes into sight, he sees that Rasulullah is already waiting for him. And he comes off of his horse. And he goes to Rasulullah, and out of respect that he had for Rasulullah, he fell to the feet and he started to kiss the feet of Rasulullah. And Rasulullah tells him, Irkab, O Ali, you go back on your horse. Irkab, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى وَرَسُولَهُ عَنْكَ رَاضِيَانِ. Ride, because Allah and His Messenger are pleased with you. They are happy with you. And at that point, Imam Ali alayhi salam, he begins to cry. And he's happy over this thing, meaning that his tears are tears of happiness. Once he hears that he is the subject to the pleasure and the happiness of Allah and His Messenger, he begins to cry the tears of happiness. The rest of the people are busy dividing the spoils of war, but Imam Ali alayhi salam is crying out of tears of happiness. And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after this, is very interesting. He goes to the people who Imam alayhi salam had been the leader of, the army, and he says that, how did you find Imam alayhi salam as your commander? They said that we don't have any complaints. He was perfect. The way he led us, the strategy, the tactics, everything. But there's just one thing that we noticed, that whenever he would lead the prayers for us, the only surah that he would recite would be Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad, meaning that as a second surah, he would always use Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad. He wouldn't do any of the other surahs. So that was something that we found a little bit strange. So Rasulullah goes to Imam Ali and he asks him, he says that, oh Ali, tell me, why is it that you only read as a second surah Surah Qul Huwallahu Ahad? Why didn't you use any other surah? Imam Ali tells him, oh Rasulullah, the reason is because I love this surah. And Rasulullah is very happy with this response. And he says that, oh Ali, because of your love for this surah, Allah loves you. Right? There's deep messages in here about Tawheed and Ikhlas and what the reality of Surah At-Tawheed and Ikhlas is. And by the way, in the month of Rajab, it's one of those surahs that's highly recommended to recite. And then Rasulullah says, "O Ali, had it not been that I fear what different groups among the Christians did with Nabi Isa alayhi salam," meaning that they took him and they made him and elevated him to a status where he went beyond being a servant of Allah. لَقُلْتُ فِيكَ الْيَوْمَ مَقَالًا لَا تَمُرُّ بِمَلَئٍ مِّنْهُمْ إِلَّا أَخَذُوا التُّرَابَ مِن تَحْتِ قَدَمَيْكَ. I would say something about you today such that when people would be passing by, they wouldn't do so except that they would take the very earth that you walk on as a means of barakah for them. That was the status of Imam Ali alayhi salam. But brothers and sisters, this reason for why I went through some of the details here is because what we see in the behavior of Imam Ali Islam, the character, the way he responds to different things, there's some life lessons we can derive from them. But inshallah, you can be thinking about that. We're going to go to incident number 2. Inshallah, we just have 3 incidents and then we'll draw to a conclusion. The second incident is from a very famous incident that all of you are familiar with. Allah Ta'ala in the Quran, in Surah Al-Anfal, verse number 30, He warns the Prophet of impending danger. He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإذ يمكر بك الذين كفروا ليثبتوك أو يقتلوك. There were people, the enemies are doing makr, they're plotting to somehow get to you, to kill you. أو يخرجوك ويمكرون ويمكر الله والله خير الماكرين. Somehow they want to get you to leave the city of Makkah, but they are planning and Allah is planning and Allah is the best of planners. This was the news that Jibreel alayhi salam had given to the Prophet, that the enemy was going to come, each member of the different tribes of the Quraysh in Makkah were going to come, and as a joint operation. In one tradition I read that there was 40 of them, and they were all going to come together and at one time attack the house of the Prophet and jointly kill him. So this news was given to the Prophet that this was going to happen. So when Jibreel alayhi salam gives news to the Prophet of this happening and he commands him to do the hijrah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa calls Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he calls him to him and he begins to describe to him what's going to happen. And he tells him that Allah has commanded me to do hijrah. I have to leave this city. I have to leave my home. I have to go to this cave where I will find safety there. And He has ordered me to order you to do mabit in my place. Mabit means to spend the night in the place where I sleep. This is an order from God. And then he says to him, what is it that you think about this, O Ali? Imam Ali alayhi salam says only one thing. He says that if I do mabit in your home, if I spend the night in your home, Ya Rasulullah, will you find safety as a result of that? And he says yes. And Imam Ali Islam begins to smile. And he smiles to the point where he's almost laughing, and immediately he goes down to the ground and he does a sajda of shukr. And they say that after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was no one who used to do sajda like Imam Ali alayhi salam. And he had this custom of doing sajda to shukr whenever he would have an occasion to be grateful to Allah. Now, it's interesting. This event that's taking place here, it's something which was not a small matter for Imam Ali alayhi salam to basically volunteer himself for something that could lead to shahada. We know from various reports that Imam Ali alayhi salam was not certain that his life would be preserved. It was a dangerous situation. But for him, it's actually an occasion of happiness to be able to serve in this capacity. There's one tradition I came across which is reported from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. It says that when this took place, Allah Ta'ala, He summoned 2 of the angels. There's 2 angels in heaven who were very famous for a type of camaraderie and brotherhood that they had with each other. They were very close to one another. And Allah asks them a question. He says that, tell me, if I am going to take the life of one of you, whose life should I take? Why don't you discuss it amongst each other and tell me whose life I should take? And so they started to discuss, and one of them, started to make arguments for why he should be living. The other one started to make arguments for why he should be living, and so on and so forth. And then Allah Ta'ala tells them, He says that, here you are and you are arguing about this. Where are you compared to my abd, my servant, who is pleased with the idea of death because he wouldn't want even one hair of the head of his cousin and Rasulullah to be harmed. Where are you compared to him? This is the nobility of the human being. This is what it means for insan to be ashraful makhluqat. And so this was something that even in the heavens that's being discussed, this type of act of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And when you go and study this tradition, it's very interesting. When Rasulullah hears this acceptance from Imam Ali, he tells him that, Ali, you should know something. That Allah only tests those who are close to Him according to the capacity of their iman and their status in religion. And those who are tested more than anyone are the prophets, and then those who are most like the prophets. And indeed, Allah is going to be testing me, and He's going to test you, and He's going to test me through testing you. In the same way that Ibrahim alayhi salam was tested by being asked to slaughter his son Ismail, so I am being tested by asking you to sleep in my bed. فَصَبْرًا إِنَّ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ قَرِيبٌ مِنَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Be patient, be patient. Indeed, the mercy of Allah is near to those who do good. And the Prophet brings him to his chest and he embraces him and he begins to cry. And Imam Ali cries as well too. Why? Because they had so much love for one another. This crying was not tears of fear. It was not tears of, let's say, worry, but rather tears because of the departure. They were going to be separated from one another. And we're told that that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even when he left, he was constantly, asking about Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was trying to find out what happened. Now, that night, when Imam Ali alayhi salam is sleeping in the bed of the Prophet, he is wrapped in the same cloak that the Prophet is wrapped in normally, so he wouldn't be able to be distinguished from the Prophet. The enemies gather and they come inside. There's a number of reports that say that when they saw Imam Ali alayhi salam, they didn't just leave. They took out their sticks, they took out their arrows, they took out their swords, and they started to strike. And Imam Ali, in one report, he says that I was bruised and I swelled up so much because of the injuries that took place. Some reports say that he also fought back at that time. But then they decided, for whatever reason, not to kill him, but to rather go and chase after the Prophet. And you all know the verse that's revealed at that time regarding Imam Ali Islam. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِ نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ رَؤُوفٌ بِالْعِبَادِ. And among people, there's those who offer themselves for sale. Why? Seeking the pleasure of Allah. Meaning that it's not that they're just willing to give a charity of something that they own. They give everything that they have, their very existence, they give it to Allah. And they say, Allah, you are my creator, this is yours. Inna lillah, we are from you. You do with it that you want. I'm here for you. I'm your servant. And that is for the pleasure of Allah. You compare this to others who, they had to be comforted. They had to be comforted. They needed like a type of sort of like, don't worry, it's all going to be okay type of thing. When they went after the Prophet and they went into the cave, to the point where the Prophet has to tell them, La tahzan, inna Allah ma'ana, don't worry so much, Allah is with us, I'm Rasulullah, Allah is with us. فَأَنزَلَ اللَّهُ سَكِينَةُ عَلَيْهِ وَأَيَّدَهُ بِجُنْدٍ. This is from the Quran. Where's this and where's the one who يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. These are Quranic statements that indicate that Imam Ali was on a different level, not even comparable to these others. So this is the second incident, brothers and sisters. Later on, Imam Ali, this was so important that Imam Ali would sometimes mention, this incident of the Laylatul Mabit, the night of Mabit. In one report, Ibn Abbas says that one time Imam Ali, he composed some poetry. He says that with my own soul, I protected the best of those who had ever walked on the earth. وقيت بنفسي خير من وطأ الحمى وأكرم خلق طاف بالبيت والحجر وبت أراعي منهم ما يسوءني وقد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. this is the words of Imam Ali Islam, where he's saying that, when because of this action that Allah commanded me to do, I was able to save the Prophet, and this was it wasn't meant for him to be killed at this time. So he says that وَبَاتَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ فِي الْغَارِ آمِنًا. That night Rasulullah was in the cave and he was in safety, while I spent the night in the bed, in this type of basically my life was in danger. He wasn't sure whether he was going to be killed or he was going to be in prison or what would happen. It shows us that Imam Ali Islam was there, and he was it was a dangerous situation, but this is the way that he dealt with it. The third incident, brothers and sisters, is one which is a different type of incident. Both of these had to do with difficulties that came about because of enemies attacking, and there's many stories of this. Imam Ali Islam, if you want to see some of the places where he would shine, you just look at the battles, and you see the battles are some of the most difficult places. You had prominent, illustrious so-called companions that they would just flee. They wouldn't be seen. But you see time and time again, Imam Ali Islam would be there for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He'd be there until the end. But this is a different type of incident. From a different part of his life. Imam Ali Islam, yes, there would be times where he would be fighting the enemy. Yes, there would be times where he would be leading the government, and so many other things that he did, teaching the people. But there was a certain portion of his life that he would be laboring on the fields. It's famous in history. Imam Ali Islam is known to have dug many canals for water to flow in. He's famous for having planted many trees and for cultivating these trees and harvesting them. And what would he do with this? He would use this wealth to be able to help the different people and those who are needy. And the amount of wealth that he would have would actually be enormous, but he would give all of it away in the way of Allah. There was one time where there were some of the companions who were kind of taunting him and saying that, look at him, he doesn't have anything. To the point where he had to call them and prove to them, when he was distributing that wealth, he had to have them be there and witness how much he had and how much he was giving away. There was one time where Imam Ali Islam was riding, and he had many date seeds with him, these big bushels of date seeds that he was carrying. And there was somebody who saw him in that state, and maybe he kind of thought that, okay, that's not a very noble thing. I mean, why is he toiling so much carrying these seeds? So he goes to him and he says that, Abu Hassan, what is this load that you have on your camel here? What are you carrying all this stuff for? What is it for? And Imam Ali Islam says to him, 100,000 date palms, inshallah. It's very interesting. He was taking these seeds, and he was going to have to go and do a lot of work. He's going to take them, he's going to dig the earth and plant them, and then tend to them and take care of them and water them and so on and so forth, until how many years would pass until this date palm would actually be able to bear fruit, and he could actually gain a profit from it. But from that point, you see the way that he's looking at this labor that's been faced with him, this task, this something that a lot of people would maybe be pessimistic about. Imam Ali Islam is very optimistic, and he says 100,000 date palms, inshallah. This is one of the incidents which gives us a practical sense as to the way Imam Ali Islam approached life. And if we go back now, brothers and sisters, and we look at the other two incidents, you'll see that there was something common among all three of them. And it has to do with this, that Imam Ali Islam was somebody who he had to face a lot of very difficult situations in life, right? Enemies coming and being asked to sleep in the bed of the Prophet, where he's going to be attacked by 40 enemies with swords, toiling on the field, having to bear poverty-like conditions, and so many other things. But we see that in these three incidents and many other times in his life, Imam Ali alayhi salam was able to find happiness in areas that most people aren't able to see happiness. These days we're living at a time where everyone's searching for this golden word called happiness. They say that some people are saying that there's a happiness revolution taking place, that everyone is like, just forget the money, forget the power, the prestige. All we want is to be happy. We're done with it. Like, we've been through all that. Technology didn't solve our problems. The modern world didn't solve our problems. Getting rich doesn't solve our problems. We're looking for happiness. But here we have, someone like Imam Ali alayhi salam and the other members of the Ahlul Bayt. They show us a deep understanding of what life is about and how we can find happiness in dimensions that other people wouldn't see. Imam alayhi salam is happy when he sees the values of truth and Islam being carried out. These are things which make him happy. He finds value when batil is being defeated. He finds value and happiness when he's given an opportunity to serve. He finds happiness when he's able to do productive things, and he finds optimism and happiness in doing this. Whereas maybe other people, when they're given a burden and they find it difficult, they're like, this is no good. I don't want this. Sometimes the most pleasure in life comes from those most difficult moments. Raising kids, for example, especially during a pandemic, can be very difficult. Take a lot of patience. But one day we'll look back and maybe we'll see that that's when I actually learned what it meant to have akhlaq. That's when I learned what it meant to have an expanded sadr, that shahr sadr we're supposed to have when dealing with others. So on this night, we ask Allah Ta'ala to make us and give us the ability to understand the expectations that the Ahlul Bayt had for us and have for us when it comes to the way we're supposed to live our lives and the way we're supposed to leave this world. We ask Allah Ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to always make us among those who not just love them but to follow them. And we ask Him to hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time. بحق علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام. اللهم أحينا على ما أحييت عليه علي بن أبي طالب وأمتنا على ما مات عليه علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, may Allah reward you for being with us tonight. We have a very special presentation now from a group within Qissa family. Qissa family is made up of some wonderful human beings who are working hard to support and one of the most important institutions that we have, which is the family, under the leadership of Moulana Abidi. They've been doing great work. The branch and the group that we're going to be hearing from tonight is the Free Years group, which is a group of individuals who are researching questions and topics related to parenting the first 7 years. And they're creating resources that are easily accessible and relatable for the audience. And part of what we're doing here is to show the community a little bit about what they're doing, and so that if there's others who are interested in either benefiting from what they're doing or maybe being able to help out, then now at least they've seen some faces, they know something about it. Part of what we're doing here is also because it's been a long time since we've all been together. So it's a chance for us to see some faces, maybe some of them will be familiar, and to hear from some real life experiences. And sometimes it can be very inspiring to hear from others and we get some ideas. Alhamdulillah, we had some great responses and videos over the last couple of sessions we had on the 2 different wiladat. And tonight we're going to be hearing, inshallah, first a short 3-minute video from some of the sisters who are involved with running this Free Years group. And then we're going to be hearing a number of short reflections. The entire series is going to take about 8 to 10 minutes, so it's not going to take too much of your time. Inshallah, you can be with us during this time and you can appreciate the efforts of all those who are involved with Qissa family, with all the other efforts. May Allah reward you all. Inshallah, we can hear them and then we'll be ending the program. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa alihi at-tahirin.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Narjis. Salam, Narjis, can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, salam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, alhamdulillah.
That's awesome. So thank you for joining me. I wanted to you know me already, but for the audience, I want to introduce myself. My name is Zainab Haidar, and I am the coordinator for the Qissa Family Free Years group. And our group is focused on researching parenting for ages 0 to 7. So today I wanted to interview you because you are were a member of the Sabah community for a long time, right?
Yes. I pretty much grew up at Sabah. My entire childhood was pretty much spent at Sabah up until I got married and moved here to Texas. So yeah, holds a fond place in my heart.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Kissa over there like is just doing so many amazing things. So even though I live in Austin, I'm just so glad to be a part of it. And this group, we're always looking for volunteers. And what I'm really excited about is just producing good materials about parenting research. So, anyways, the last year was such a crazy time, 2020.
Yeah.
Especially for parents and especially for mothers, I think. So I wanted to just like ask you, what would you say were your highs and lows for the year, for parenting during the pandemic from that perspective? What were your biggest takeaways, your highs and lows?
Yeah, definitely. So I think just generally parenting is hard to begin with. And then when you're thrown a pandemic, it just throws everything off. So definitely there were a lot of lows and highs as well. But I think some of the things that I struggled with the most with the lows is just having not having that community around and not being able to see the same people that we see and that we get that support from. Especially for like children, especially I have a daughter who's like 5 years old. And so not having to see her friends that she sees on a daily basis and having that community support was very difficult for her, I think. And then just having to be so mindful of going out. Before the pandemic, we would just make a plan and just, we wouldn't have to think twice about where we're going or even the safety of that. And so just having to think of every little step before going out was kind of difficult with kids, and it took a lot of time. And so that was definitely a low. But the highs, there were highs as well, and I think those are important to mention.
Yeah.
One of the highs I think was we were able to spend more time with each other. My husband worked from home for a while, and I wasn't going anywhere for work, and so there was a lot of time spent throughout the like mundane activities that we would do. So we were able to find joy in those things, I think, and then also just embrace that, I think. So
Yeah, I think those are really great answers, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in similar boats. They can relate. I know for me, I really enjoyed the family time together, but it was definitely a big disruption not being able to do the things that we were used to. So thank you so much for talking with me, Just before we end, I just wanted to mention that you're also a coordinator with Kisa Family for the special needs group. So inshallah, I'm excited to see where that group goes.
Yeah, I mean, we have a strong team right now, and we're working on a lot of exciting things. So I'm excited to, bring that forward to the community.
Yeah, inshallah. Okay, thank you for chatting with me, Narjis.
Thank you, Zainab, for calling.
Hafiz.
Hafiz.
Welcome everyone, Eid Mubarak. One high of parenting during this pandemic for us has been that we get to spend a lot more time with our kids, and we've been able to take them to explore nature a lot more, which they have really been enjoying. But one low is probably that it's been hard to create social experiences for our kids and just have them interact with other kids. That's probably the hardest part. But overall, alhamdulillah, they've been doing really well.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, Eid Mubarak. Sorry for my audio, I don't know what's wrong, but to answer the prompt, one low of parenting in the pandemic was getting really used to being at home to the point where I didn't really make an effort to take the kids out, although there were some alternatives and solutions to that. I just really avoided it. One positive was because of getting so settled at home, I took a parenting class with a, mashallah, Moulana sister, and it was just amazing. It was incredible. I learned a lot, and I felt like it really changed my understanding of the children and my expectations of them and the tools that I use with them, and my internal reality when their emotions are high. So it was really amazing and incredible, and I feel like it probably wouldn't have coalesced without getting used to being at home all this time. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. The low for parenting during the pandemic has definitely been the lack of social aspect with the community, going to the masjid, the centers, or extracurricular activities like in sports. So definitely the social aspect. We also miss going to the library a lot. We used to do that a lot more. And the high is since we don't do extracurricular activities, anymore. We have a lot of quality time to spend together. We play a lot more board games, which has been really nice. And yeah, just lots of arts and crafts and activities, and lots of walks and hikes. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Fiza. I think one high from the pandemic has definitely been able to be able to work at home and be with the family more. One low has been not being able to be with our community and go to Sabah and see our friends and family all under one roof. We definitely miss the religious programs.
My name is Hussein.
And Hussein, what was the best thing about the pandemic?
Nothing.
Nothing good came from the pandemic? What about something bad?
Assalamu alaikum, Eid Mubarak. I think one parenting low for us was that we really missed out on taking our daughter to Sabah or just in general out to events, especially because I grew up going to Sabah for every event that was there, whether it be Waladat or Majlis or the month of Ramadan, the months of Muharram and Safar. And so I guess one parenting high that came out of that was that we got really creative in how we celebrated or commemorated major events at home, and it really pushed us to get creative, just in general with all different types of things, including activities and just ways to combat boredom.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. One high during the pandemic, especially with regards to parenting, was I found that kids tend to be more creative as they grow day by day. And alhamdulillah, I've seen my daughter especially, making different things with her magnetic tiles and also painting, trying out new things. So that was very exciting to watch, the more time they stayed at home. And one low during the pandemic, I would say, is, managing your work as well as keeping, my daughter occupied was a challenge, but alhamdulillah, we were able to do it. And inshallah, looking forward to be back at the center and meeting with everyone. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أزور سيدي ومولاي أبا عبد الله الحسين صلوات الله وسلامه عليه، صالة عن نفسي ونيابة عن والدي ووالد والدي وأخواني المؤمنين والمؤمنات، لا سيما من قلدنا الدعاء والزيارة طاعة قربة إلى الله تعالى. أسأل الله الجنة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين. فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن، بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سل وأمري لأمركم متبع. صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. زيارة علي بن الحسين عليهما السلام. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم. لعن الله أمة قتلت، ولعن الله أمة ظلمت، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. زيارة الأوصياء سلام الله عليهم أجمعين، الشهداء السعداء شهداء كربلاء. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الناصح، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله الحسين. بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم مطابة الأرض التي أنتم فيها دفنتم وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. زيارة العباس ابن علي سلام الله عليهم أجمعين. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما وأقدمهم إيمانا وأقومهم بدين الله وأحوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك، فنعم الأخ المواسي لأخيه. فلعن الله أمة قتلت، ولعن الله أمة ظلمت، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت في قتلك حرمة الإسلام. فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعة ربه الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل. فألحقك الله بدرجة آبائك في دار النعيم، آمين رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى جدك وأبيك، وعلى أمك وأخيك، وعلى التسعة المعصومين من بنيك، لا سيما مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، عجل الله فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه في جملة أوليائه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى اللهم على محمد وآل محمد طيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.